Major League Pickleball just completed the 4th regular season event of the season in Kansas City. We've got a ton to talk about. Dream Breakers are back, Texas's 7-game win streak finally comes to an end, and Utah might not be the worst team in the league. We'll take a look at the updated standings, give out some awards, have some fun with charts, and there's an upcoming waiver wire. Maybe we'll see some more trades. We'll talk about all that and more, but before we do that, please consider liking and subscribing this video. I put a ton of effort into these, and I've actually broken out my fancy equipment. Hopefully I sound a little bit better now, maybe even look a little bit clearer. I'm not sure if that's a good thing though. We're going to have a little bit of a lighter highlight package this time around, but don't worry, the Sorry Not Sorry podcast is back this week, so if you want a longer, more in-depth look at all the action, make sure to check him out too. Here's a look at the standings heading into this event. Remember, Salt Lake City was last week. At the end of that event, Dallas Flash, St. Louis Shock, Texas Rangers, New Jersey Fives, Hustlers, the DC Pickleball team, and the LA Mad Drops all are starting to separate themselves from the rest of the league. Will those teams stay in the mix? Is anybody going to fall out? Is there anybody not currently in the playoff picture that can play their way in? Let's find out. Let's start things off with the Dream Breaker, Utah versus New York. Connor Garnett, the Tui Nation hat is now backwards. That is the official sign that he means business, and he's going to rip one right past Jack Sock. He's able to get his team out to a big lead. Tyler Loong with a match point against CJ Klinger, who says that one is Loong, that is long. Leah Jansen against Callie Smith, 20-20, gets the winner off the net, looks to the bench, and the fellas love it. The very next rally, Leah Jansen able to find the winner. Utah comes up short, but they did get a point, and they're looking a lot more dangerous these days. We'll talk more about them later. Here we've got Arizona versus Texas. We've got men's doubles, and anytime Quang Duong is on the court, this is the pattern you got to keep an eye out for. He loves his two-handed backhand dink, but he's going to give a lot of ATP opportunities. It's just a matter of if the other team can take advantage, which isn't always easy when Christian Alshon is there to close it down. Here we've got another one. Texas was able to keep this alive, ended up winning that rally. Now Arizona with a 2-point lead, trying again. That's going to sail deep. Texas, though, with a game point. Andre's going to try it again. Dylan fills in nicely. They hang on. Now it's Arizona with their own game point. And there's only one way that this match could end.
And another ATP. That is probably the 8th, maybe 9th ATP that Quang Duong set up for DSQ.
Later in mixed doubles, Arizona needs a win to force the Dream Breaker. Quang Duong tees it up for Dylan. He cannot connect. Texas goes on to get the regulation dub. Dream Breakers were back in style. Last event, only 16% of matches went to a Dream Breaker. On the first day, Saturday, 6 of the 9 matches ended in a Dream Breaker. Here we've got Anna Bright pulling off a 4-0 over Georgia Johnson. 4-0 in itself can sometimes be enough to tip the scale. Let's see what happens when Georgia Johnson gets back on the court, though.
Bright swept Johnson. Now Johnson sweeps Bright.
And anytime St. Louis is in a Dream Breaker, I feel like Gabe Tardio is always the one getting a winner.
You thought the Dallas Flash was the best team in Major League Pickleball? St. Louis Shock have something to say about that.
So, taking a look at the Saturday results, Dallas had 2 Dream Breakers. They split those. DC back in action, lost a Dream Breaker. Utah getting a 3-1 win over LA. That is big for them. Also lost a Dream Breaker, so 4 points on the day. Very good for Utah. I got to keep an eye on this team this week, I'm telling you. In fact, let's jump into another Utah match.
Little showtime. Oh, little showtime.
After losing both gender doubles games, Utah comes storming back, including this unnecessary tweener winner combo from Tyler Loong, who then screams like a psychopath. Callie Smith with the Ernie. Utah up late, but a little controversy.
No hindrance on the uh-oh? Huh.
And if Shock loses this one, I'm sure they're going to be mad.
And after a little bit of dinking, sure enough, they are mad.
Yeah, like I said.
In fact, so mad that Hayden looked a little reluctant to paddle tab here at the end.
Hayden not happy with that.
All of a sudden, after that win, this match is winnable because Gabe and Kate have not been a great mixed doubles team, and Connor Garnett and Alex Truong played absolutely lights out this entire week. They went 3-0 this week. Connor Garnett taking over with the big forehand, the big backhand there. And just check out how clinical this ATP is. It makes it look so easy. That is not easy. And sure enough, they were able to win this game and force the Dream Breaker. which, I mean, if you're Utah, every single point, it's got to feel pretty good after how the season started. However, too much. Anna Bright able to get the winner against Alex Truong. 2 points for St. Louis, just a point for Utah. I don't really believe in moral victories, but yeah, I mean, that's a moral victory. Here we've got Arizona against New York. Arizona trying to close late. They've got a game point, and Dylan Frazier gets executed by CJ Klinger. Another game point, trying to force the Dream Breaker. Into the net from Caitlin Christian. Okay, a third try. Third time is the charm, that's what they say. And another ball into the net. Fourth time, can they do it? This team desperately needs to start getting some points. Just getting to a Dream Breaker, super important for this team. Dylan Frazier takes over, gets his team there. Now, on to the Dream Breaker. We've got Andre Diascu back from his suspension, and he is absolutely ripping the ball past CJ Klinger. He got a 4-0 against him early on in the Dream Breaker. Arizona got off to a big lead and was able to hold on to that to get the dub, to get 2 points.
Statement win.
Taking a look at the rest of the Sunday action, it was a big day for the Orlando Squeeze. They dug a bit of a hole in their 6 matches they played last week, able to get 6 points at 2-0 with 2 regulation wins today. Huge for them trying to get back in the mix. On the other side of that coin is LA Mad Drops, 0-2 after playing so well last week, unable to get it done. Finally, there were 4 more matches played on Monday. We're just going to take a look at one. This will be our featured match. We have Texas versus DC. DC able to get a nice, big, comfortable win over Tina and Etta. Not an easy thing to do. Take a look at Ranchers GM looking on, Ryan DeWidgeon. Kwang Duong powers up that 2-hand backhand like he's playing Mario Tennis. The GM loves it. This was a great match, by the way. Every single game that was played felt like it could have gone either way. Take a look at that. Another ATP off of Kwang Duong, 2-handed backhand dink. Got to keep an eye on that. Absolutely clean body back there from Kwang. Disguises it. Maybe you expect another dink and bam, right on your shoulder. The GM loves it. Here we go again. Similar pattern. This time the ATP goes deep. GM loves it. Here we go. Similar patterns. More wide dinks. Able to find the right spot though. Get James tied up. Christian Alshon puts it away. GM is loving it. DC is down, but James Ignatowicz is hopping, ready for his chance at a comeback. And a lot of teams play conservative on the serve and rally scoring. The data does not necessarily back that up, and DC continued to go for it. That is 2 missed returns. Here is a 3rd missed return. These are clutch points. Going big on their serve is paying dividends. Take a look here. Deckel, again, a 4th missed return late for Texas. What is happening? And on game point, guess what happens?
Game point.
Side out, point.
Okay, I kind of set y'all up for that. That's my bad. But check out this. We get a firefight. Texas able to get a 26-27 lead. Then they get a game point of their own. Tell me what y'all think. Should DC have pulled back the throttle on that last serve? Maybe just tried to lay off and get it in? Or do you stick with what got you there? I think you got to ride it out. I think you got to just accept that. On to mixed doubles. Texas trailing late, 22-17. Christian Alshon is going to pull off a pretty impressive Ernie there off the tape. Ooh, and the GM is cheering the net cord. Just for the record, he did not actually cheer that. I just edited that in. And speaking of net cords, DC with a game point. And after a little bit of dinking, Ignatowicz is going to try the ATP, and it will be defended not by Etta Wright, but by Christian Alshon on the far side. The rally continues. This is still a game point. And Texas survives. Just take a look at this ATP defense. That is incredible. Anytime the far side player is defending the ATP, maybe you cooked it a little too much. Texas still on the comeback trail. We're going to get another Ernie for Alshon. What a sharp angle. That is tough. Another game point for DC. They get to the kitchen. Alshon maybe a little too aggressive. Now all of a sudden they've got the advantage. Texas is in scramble mode. Just make one more ball, trying to keep it alive. Etta Wright, what a dig. And Ignatowicz into the net. Take another look.
She keeps Texas alive.
Etta Wright, my goodness, with the resets.
All tied up the very next rally. Alshon, right on the shoulder, gets his revenge. DC, yet another game point, trying to close it out. There he comes across the middle, hits them a 2-1 lead with Deckelbar and Vivian Glosman looking to close out against Kwang Duong and Tina Pisnik. Now, Tina and Deckel are 2 players very familiar with each other's games. Here, Deckel able to get it right at her feet, get the shot he wants. Now, Deckel able to dink it out wide past Kwang, get another easy winner. DC with the first match point. Texas hanging on, trying to force the Dream Breaker. It was not meant to be. Really fun match. My favorite one of the entire week, even though we lost. So here are the rest of Monday's results. It was a big day for DC. They got 6 points, going 2-0. New York Hustlers able to get a regulation win over Orlando, who so desperately needs points. Guys, that means that these teams that were already in the top 6 are really starting to separate themselves. We'll take a quick look at the standings for just this event, and then we'll roll them into the new season standing. Here's a look at the standings following this event. We've got teams like St. Louis, Dallas, and Texas. They've played all 4 of the first 4 regular season events. They've played 18 matches. Then you've got a team like New Jersey. They've only attended 2 events. They've only played 9 matches. St. Louis, Dallas, and Texas only play 1 of the remaining 4 events. It's going to be in Las Vegas, and they all play each other. It's going to be very entertaining. That is a downside for these teams because that's a tough strength of schedule, but also that means you do control a little bit more of your own destiny. If these are the 3 teams that are still at the top of the standings when that Las Vegas event rolls around, Texas is probably going to be pretty glad that they get head-to-head chances against Dallas and against St. Louis. So I'm not viewing this as a negative for a hard strength of schedule. This is an opportunity. Am I moving my hands too much? I'm trying new setup. New things are happening. Now, New Jersey wasn't at this event. They've still got a lot of games to play. The New York Hustlers, the one really bad event, they had the one really good event, and it looks like they are kind of here to stay. DC Pickleball team back in action, and they also look the part of a playoff team, and that's kind of where that ends. Take a look at the points per match of the top 6, and then the points per match of the 7th place LA Mad Drops. There is a massive gap there. And after LA did so well last week to play themselves back into the mix with Blaine Hovenier subbing in for Thomas Wilson, they were unable to recapture that same magic. Let's take a look at these standings in another way. Here we have match points by game number. You can kind of just see how each match went for each team. For example, there's Texas's 7-game win streak that finally came to an end. You can see that St. Louis is currently on the longest active win streak. They have won 6 straight matches. And Columbus, down there at the bottom, they have lost 6 straight. There's still a lot of pickleball left to be played for these teams at the bottom of the standings. They've already kind of eaten into all of the buffer they have, and it's kind of time to get moving. Here's one more look. This is the same concept, only now it is cumulative match points by game number. And just because, why the hell not, we've got this in a chart. And here we also have plotted out the 6th place pace and the 7th place pace. I think it is reasonable to assume that the playoff cut line will be somewhere between the 25 points and the 42 points. Here we've got the player results for just the Kansas City tournament. We're going to be giving out an MVP for man. We're going to go with Connor Garnett. He's absolutely elevated this Utah team from, let's face it, kind of a laughingstock to actually kind of a dangerous team. Him and Alex Truong played really well together. He was a menace in Dream Breakers, Tui Nation. We're going to give him the MVP award. Utah's not going to make the playoffs, don't get me wrong, but it just feels like they actually have something to build on now. And on the women's side, we have to go with Rachel Rohrabacher, going 6-0. Now, a few of the things that jump out to me here is that LA just did not have a very good event, as we talked about. Hunter Johnson, for a while, he was kind of an outlier in some of my charts, and he's kind of come crashing back down to reality. Of course, playing next to Blaine Hovenier, who did admirably last week filling in for Thomas Wilson, also kind of had a reality check here, going 0-6. Jack Sock is continuing to not really look like a first-round man. And on the women's side, Tina Pisnick and Etta Wright, Jackie Kalmoto and Leah Jansen, these continue to be really high performers. Let's go ahead and take a look at the partnership data for just Kansas City. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but Federico Staxrud and Tyson McGuffin might be the best men's doubles teams in MLP. That sounds hot take, maybe, but I'm going to back it up later, so stick around for that. Andre Dascu and Dylan Frazier maybe finally starting to figure things out playing together. On the women's side, Rachel Rohrabacher and Vivian Glossman. It's really hard not to argue that that was a good trade for DC, swapping Elise Jones for Vivian Glossman. Just watching Vivian play, it's very apparent that she belongs in Premier League. Elsewhere on the women's side, it was the strong teams performing well and the weak teams kind of struggling like we expected, with one exception of maybe a little bit of a speed bump for Hurricane Tyra Black and Georgia Johnson. Going 1-3 in the week is certainly below the standard that they have performed to so far this season and that we could probably expect them to perform at going forward. Mixed doubles continues to be a strength for the Texas Ranchers. Kwang Duong and Tina Pisnick and Christian Auchan and Etta Wright each went 2-1. Alex Truong and Connor Garnett 3-0. I mean, that's really what it's all about for Utah. It's kind of feels like it's on Connor Garnett's shoulders right now to try to get this team out of the cellar. So let's go ahead and roll all of these results into our season-long data. So we'll start off with my personal favorite chart. And while you guys take a look at this, let me go and tell you about the Austin Pickle Ranch. 16 indoor courts here in Austin. It is owned and operated by my dad. He calls himself the Chief Fun Officer. If you see him up there in his cowboy hat, be sure to say hello. He's been absolutely crushing it. The ranch is doing so well that he's actually extending hours, so you can now play until midnight. If you're coming into town or you live here, be sure to check it out. So anyway, back to this. We've just got a little radar chart showing the team's win percentage in games in each of the 4 disciplines. And the first thing that jumps out to me is, once again, like to make fun of Utah a little bit. They were always this tiny little triangle down in the bottom corner there. But go ahead and take a look at Columbus because they're also a tiny little triangle. In fact, over here on the right, Utah's game win percentage is higher than Columbus's right now. Utah might not be the worst team in the league. This is a massive development. And even though Jay DeVilliers has been playing well for Columbus, I'm going to go ahead and say Utah is currently winning that trade. Another thing I think is very interesting is how New Jersey and New York kind of seem like they have a similar strategy. It's just New Jersey is a supercharged version of that. They both have incredibly strong women's doubles lineups. Of course, New Jersey's just a little bit stronger. They do have Annalie Waters, and they are very talented in Dream Breakers. Here's 1 through 4 can all hold their own, but of course, they struggle in men's doubles. Another thing that's interesting is Orlando is kind of just the mirror image of New York. They have one strong gender doubles line while the other one has been weaker. Of course, teams like Dallas, DC, LA, Texas, St. Louis have been a little more well-rounded. We've got season-to-date head-to-head game records, including the regular season and the midseason tournament. This is all games, the way you will read this chart. If you want to see what Texas's record in games is against Orlando, you just go over to this cell. Texas is 7-1 versus Orlando in all games. If you want to take a closer look at any of these, go ahead and pause. We've got this for men's doubles, we've got this for women's doubles, and we've got this for mixed doubles as well. And by the way, I will be tweeting out most, if not all, of these charts, so be sure to follow me there. We talked about this a little bit last week, just a little catch-up course. If you missed it, I am a nerd. I reverse engineered the formula to calculate the duper win probabilities that they show in the broadcast. That's just a modified ELO win probability. The formula is here. You can try it out yourself. Just make sure you use the average of that team's duper. We can use this data to just get a little bit of extra nuance around a team's strength of schedule and what I'm calling strength of record. Let's talk about Federico Staxford and Tyson McGuffin. Now they're 11-4. Their opponent's win percentage is 48%, and their opponent's duper is 13.44. It can just help you get a little bit of context when you look at a team like Christian Alshon and Pablo Tejas, who's now in Challenger. They went 2-2 against a pretty tough strength of schedule there. But anyway, back to Tyson McGuffin and Federico Staxford. Based on their team duper of 13.75 and their opponent's duper of 13.44, they are currently performing slightly better than they would be expected to. Over the course of a season right now, they are performing 1 win better than their duper thinks they should. On the other hand, Ben and Colin Johns, they are the highest duper team in the league, 13.9. This same metric says they are underperforming their duper expectations by a full 7 wins over the course of a season. The same thing can be said for Andre Diascu and Dylan Frazier. They are the second highest rated duper team, 13.89. They are underperforming those expectations by a full 10 games over the course of a season. All this last column is saying is how is this team performing compared to how the average team would be performing. The average team, in this case, would be a men's doubles team with a 13.43 duper. And Tyson and Federico Staxford are outperforming that theoretical average team by 5.5 wins over the course of a season. The stat isn't the end-all be-all of ranking performance, but it does just help to give you context. John's brothers, who are performing at replacement level, they're performing like an average team right now, which is just crazy. Moving on to women's doubles, we're doing the same thing here. It's pretty easy to say that Annalie Waters and Mari Humberg are the top women's doubles team. Anna Bright and Kate Fahey are the number 2 team. And then there's room for debate. This stat seems to think Rachel Rohrbacher and Vivian Glossman's 5-2 record, which is admittedly a small sample size that I'm not really controlling for, is the 3rd most impressive strength of record. Not only are they outperforming their duper expectations, they are performing a full 5 games better over the course of a season than the theoretical average team, which again in this case is just a team with an 11.78 duper. Again, take all of this with a grain of salt. But I do think it kind of tracks. You've got teams like Paris Todd and Vivian David, and I think this kind of tracks that they are the biggest underachiever right now on the women's doubles side. That said, they have played a pretty tough strength of schedule, and when you adjust for that, it looks like they're performing about as well as Millie Rain and Paris Todd did in the last event, when Millie Rain was subbing in for the injured Vivian David. It's been a tough season for Andrea Koop on the Carolina and in Columbus. Neither women's doubles partnership has gelled, as she is just 1-15 in women's doubles. Alex Truong and Callie Smith having the same issue. Anyways, now we're going to move on to mixed, and I think this is probably even more interesting in mixed just because, once again, every team has two mixed lineups. You have teams like the New Jersey Fives who routinely throw out Zane against other teams' strongest mixed lines. The first thing that you immediately have to address, Alex Truong and Connor Garnett have the second best win percentage in MLP mixed doubles right now. They only played 9 games together, but still, that is notable. Here's where this stat does help to capture a little bit of nuance. Their opponent's win percentage is low. Their opponent's duper is a little bit on the low side. So my strength of record metric doesn't actually think it's nearly as impressive as what a lot of these other mixed teams have been able to do. Just 4.7 wins over the average team. Compare that to Christian Alshon and Etta Wright, who are 10-5. That's a worse win percentage, but they have roughly the same wins over replacement metric here. So at the end of the day, all this is capturing is that Christian and Etta have played on average teams with a higher duper than Alex and Connor, and after adjusting for that, are performing at about the same level. Let's take a look at some of the struggling mixed doubles teams. And there's a lot of thin data here, as some teams kind of either had a sub or switch around their partnerships. The big one that I've, of course, harped on is Gabe Tardio and Kate Fahey continuing to struggle. Finally, here we've got the Premier League men and Premier League women total season standings. If you had to give out an MVP right now, I probably would say Annalie Waters. However, her team has only played 9 matches. Anna Bright's team has played 18 matches. So it's kind of hard to say right now. Those two are easily in the driver's seat on the women's side. On the men's side, J.W. Johnson has been amazing. Hayden Patrickman's been amazing. There's a lot of strong candidates here. Here's another one of our favorite charts. We've got game win percentage here on the y-axis. We've got the player cost, which, by the way, I'm netting out any trades. That's why you'll see Vivian Glosman right around $100,000 and Kwang Duong right around $50,000. Lee Waters, Anna Bright, James Ignatowicz, Christian Alshon, and J.W. Johnson are the expensive players that really seem to be worth the price. Ben Johns, we've talked about his struggles. Jack Sock, Riley Newman's not really working for him. Columbus might be the worst team in the league. Daskew's starting to pick it up a little bit. Hunter Johnson earlier in the season was an outlier. Utah Black Diamonds are getting exactly what they paid for with Tyler Lung. Here's the same chart, just with points, win percentage. Doesn't really change much. Pause if you want a longer look. Now let's talk power rankings. This was my post-Salt Lake City power rankings. Remember, LA played so well with Blaine Hovenier getting back into the mix. We bumped them up. Orlando, even with the sub, they were digging a hole. We had to bump them down. They had 3 subs for their final 2 matches. Brutal. I'm going to give you a warning. I'm about to take some drastic steps. What I'm doing here is effectively saying I think these are the 6 playoff teams, and I don't think anybody's going to catch them. Sure, New Jersey hasn't played that many matches, and they're a little bit susceptible since they seem so keen to leave a point on the board, taking every match to a Dream Breaker. When the Dream Breaker variance inevitably catches up to them, maybe they'll start to slip a little bit. New York Hustlers, already seen a little bit of that Dream Breaker variance set in. We'll bump the Shock up to the S tier. You could really make an argument for a few of these teams up here, but hey, they're in first place, and Dallas had a little bit of a rougher week. We're keeping Orlando in the C tier because their men's doubles team is so good, and I mean, it's just hard not to imagine their women figuring out a little bit. I think if any team is going to make a play, it's going to be the Squeeze. We had them all the way in the B tier. They're back down to the D tier. It was kind of just a disastrous week for them. Again, Blaine Hovenier did great last week. About all you can ask for a sub. Didn't have it this week, and we don't really know, or at least I don't know, what the deal is with Thomas Wilson. Is he coming back? Is he done for the season? Is he hurt? The other big notable move, Columbus Sliders are joining the Utah Black Diamonds in the E tier. Last week, we dropped the F designation on this tier for Black Diamonds since they finally got a win. But we did keep them on double secret probation since they lost to Paris Todd and 3 subs. I'm happy to say they are off double secret probation. They now have a friend down in the E tier with them. Things are looking up for them. So those are my power rankings. Let me know what you think. Of course, I'm obviously biased towards the Texas Ranchers. Make sure to tell me that in the comments. And that's about all we have. I gotta say, this was a lot of fun having 2 MLPs back-to-back, but I kind of like them spaced out a little bit more. Lets them breathe a little bit. It felt weird to have Texas play Arizona last week and then play Arizona again this week. Basically, 40% of the season for a bunch of these teams was played in a 2-week stretch. That is a really bad week for your team to get sick with COVID. And that's what happened to Orlando. It's tough. Last thing to talk about, waiver wires and trades. I don't think we'll see any Premier League moves. By the time I upload this video, that will probably already have come and gone. And the Challenger waiver wire, that's where we will see some action. So keep your ears peeled for that. We had fun last week doing hot takes, but I think we're going to go and call it a video here. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys all have a great day.